How's it going, everybody? My name's John with Blackbird Productions. I hope you're doing all right today. Today we're actually in my Tesla, and I wanted to do a little bit of a different video. I wanted to do a more in-depth view of the screen and the Model 3 performance for the 2024 model year. I didn't see many videos on this particular topic, and I know myself as a new Tesla owner, I was a little confused going into all the menus and things like that and just trying to figure everything out. So I thought a video like this would be helpful for people who are relatively new to Teslas. But first, make sure you're subscribed to the channel for the latest content, and also leave a like on this video if you found this helpful. Thanks in advance. Alright, so the Tesla screen. So when you first get your Tesla, you're going to see a screen similar to this one. And this is a screen where you can just have access to some of your basic functions, like you can open the trunk from here, you can open the back trunk, and you can open the charging port, and you can lock and unlock the car, which not sure why you would want to do that when you're just sitting in the car, but if you have like a safety situation, I'm sure that might be applicable. So here you can see the car. You could also change the color of this car as well. So if you take delivery of a Tesla and it's in a color that you don't want, or maybe you may have wrapped the car, you can also change the color of this car. So moving to the main controls on this Tesla Model 3 Performance for the 2024 model year. Here you can access some quick controls. So this is the controls tab, and you can fold the mirrors. Again, if you're kind of like in a tight situation or a tight parking spot, maybe this might be applicable. You can put your child lock on, and you can enable your window lock. You could also control the glove box from here, which I think is an odd place to put it. Maybe the glove box should be somewhere down here, but that's just a personal nitpick. But you can access a glove box from here as well. You can also access your wipers, which I don't always do it from this screen. There's a quick toggle that you can use, and I'll show you that in another video. But essentially it involves just holding down one of the scroll wheels on the steering wheel for a couple seconds, and that brings up your quick menu. So if you don't want to get the too long didn't read version, that's basically it. So here you can adjust your mirrors, you can adjust your steering wheel. You could also put it in car wash mode, which is applicable for if you're going through a car wash. I've never used this before just because I'm not planning to take this car through a car wash, being that it's a black car and it can get hella swirl marks. So definitely not going to do that. I'm doing touchless wash, so I don't enable this on touchless wash, but maybe you guys in the comments can tell me otherwise if I should be putting this on. But I've never put it on, and I've washed a car a couple times now. So here is your brake holds. I don't really use this because it's all automatic. Honestly, I don't really even know what this does. Maybe it turns off the hold brake function. So basically when you come to a stop, the brakes automatically enable themselves. You've got your Sentry mode, and then you've got your brightness on the screen. You can adjust that, or you can put it to auto. I have mine on auto just because it's the most efficient. So the other thing on the top here are your parking lights, as well as your automatic running lights, or your DRLs, daytime running lights. I didn't mess around with any of this when I took delivery of my Tesla, so everything is just default. And then on top of here, I don't really use this too much, but it's a search settings tab where you can search for specific settings. So if you can't find it, you can go through here. I don't really see a lot of people cover this, but it's here. It's just not as in your face as all of the other buttons. So next is the vehicle dynamics. This is the fun section. So my understanding is with acceleration, you have three options in the 2024 Model 3 Performance. You have chill, which you're obviously acquainted with. If you have just a regular base model Tesla, you might have a long range or standard range, so that's a setting that you have on there. And then you also have standard. But in the performance model for this year, you have insane mode. My understanding is with the Tesla Model S, you have ludicrous mode or something like that. So in this car for this model year, it's called insane mode. They might change that just to streamline the name, but I honestly think this should be called ludicrous mode, because it's essentially like, it's got the same badge pretty much. There's like slight differences, but it's got the same badging as a Tesla Model S, but it's just slightly different. So I honestly think they should just change that. Moving down, the next portion here is ride and handling, which is also exclusive to the performance model for the 2024 model year, or the Model 3. So in most cars, I don't even think this option is here. If it just says standard and your long range or your standard range, I really don't think that should be there. I think it's just, it just shouldn't be there, honestly. But you have standard, you can do that in the Performance Model 3, and it makes the car drive smoother, which it is a pretty noticeable difference, but not a huge difference. Like, it's not a dramatic difference from flipping from standard to sport in this car, because believe it or not, in sport it actually does drive relatively smooth for a sports car. I've driven a lot of different cars. I even own a couple of bikes, and this car is probably the smoothest sports car I've driven, next to the 05 987 Boxster S that I owned previously, and it drives similar to that, and that car drove pretty smooth for a sports car. So the next couple of settings we have is the steering weight, and believe it or not, that's actually not a gimmick. It does actually work. I only, however, switch between light and standard. Standard, I'm usually just cruising around in. Light, I'm actually on a cruise / rally with friends. So I like to be able to quickly make maneuvers with the wheel and stuff like that, and still have a little play in the wheel. So that's just what I'm used to with all of the sports cars that I've owned in the past. So that's why I like that setting. Heavy, I don't really mess around with that, and I've never actually tried it, but I'm sure it does work. I know a lot of people who drive in sport, they typically prefer heavy, just because it gives the wheel, well, it gives the feel of the car a little bit more precise steering when you're going around corners and stuff, which I can understand if you're on the track. And the next setting after that is track mode, which is also exclusive for the performance in this model year. So right now I just have it on default, but I've never used any of the other settings. Essentially, you can create a new profile if you want a custom track setting profile, but right now I have it on default. And then the custom preset I made was the cruise preset, just because I don't really go on the track, but I do cruise around with friends quite a lot, and I go to car shows as well. So I like to have a little less regenerative braking. I want to be able to use the brakes on this car just because they are pretty decent for an EV. I don't really mess around with the handling and balance stuff. I don't really understand that enough to really take advantage of it. Maybe sometime in the future I might mess around with it, but it's not something that I want to mess around with at this moment. The next thing after that is stability assist. I don't really mess around with that either. This is all exclusively track stuff. So if you want no stability control, you want to just have the tires spin, or you want to do a burnout or something like that, this section would probably appeal to you. And then you also have the option to save dash cam for lap times, and also you can have the car cool itself before you go out on the track. So the last two options here on the dynamics page is the auto shift out of park beta. I've never tried this, just because although this car can do a lot of things by itself, I really don't want to enable that, just because I still want to have control of the car. This is probably out of the scope of this video, but although I do like this car, being that it's very automated, everything is pretty much done for you, I still want a little bit of control as the driver, so that's why I have that off. And the last option there is the slip to start. So this is if you're stuck in snow, sand, or mud, this option will be applicable to you. So the next option is the charging tab. This one is where you can set your charge limit. You may not see that, but I have it at 80% currently. That's what Tesla recommends for daily use. And then for longer trips, I switch it to 100% and it charges no problem. And then right below that, you can change your amperage when you're charging. So if you're using a level 2 versus level 1 charger, you can change that through there, and you can open the charge port from here as well. You can also schedule charges, which is pretty cool. So you can take advantage if you have a lower cent per kilowatt with your electricity during the nighttime, for example. You can schedule the car to charge during that time. And then another thing that I thought was also cool about the screen is that it actually shows the last paid charging session. I'm going to blur out the location just because I don't really want my location or anywhere around my area on the internet. But you could see the cost, and then you can reference another link for supercharging tips. So that's cool. The next tab is Autopilot. So this is a tab that I don't really go too much in. This is a tab that you would want to set and forget, so to speak. So right now I have full self-driving on just because I was testing around with it during the trial period. But you can do that. My understanding is that traffic aware cruise control is like Autopilot, so you have that options. But when you're taking delivery of this car, I highly recommend just trying out these. I honestly didn't try them all out. I just went for full self-driving just to see what all the buzz was about around that. So that's what I did. I've never tried the traffic aware control or the auto steer, which is in beta. The other options here are just additional options for your self-driving. So you can switch it into chill, average, or assertive. I've only been on average, and I've been able to get through fine just on city streets and highways. But the car is, you could say it feels a little bit cautious when it's taking turns and things like that and changing lanes. So maybe you want a more assertive driving style, and maybe that is something that you can go for when you're trying out the full self-driving. I've never tried it, but it's there for you if you want to try it. So next option after that is lane change notification. So right now I have it just set on chime. I might just do off just because it's kind of annoying. I might just have it on vibrate or off just because the chimes in here just can get a little bit overwhelming, just because there's a lot of beeps and things, especially when you're in autopilot. They really want you to be aware when you're driving this car in autopilot. So that is set to chime, I believe, by default. So additional options here are pretty self-explanatory, so I won't be going too in depth on those. One option here that I thought was cool was if you're in autopilot or self-driving, you can actually go in and change the offset of your speed when you're cruising on the highway. So say the highway speed is 65. Usually it's between 65 and 70 here where I am in Texas. But if I want to go 10 or even 5 miles over the speed limit, I could set an offset for the self-driving to use to effectively go over the speed limit just a little bit if I'm in a hurry, for example. So the next section here is locks. So this is where you'll find all your various keys. You'll see that I have my iPhone plugged in as a key, and I have 2 backup keys. Here you could also change the child lock options, so more expanded options as opposed to just using the ones on the control screen, just the one option you have there. You can enable the child lock on both doors, both passenger doors, as well as the left or right, if you want an individual door locked. The other thing here that I thought was pretty convenient is the toggle to use your phone, and when you walk away with your phone, the car will actually lock itself. So that, I think, is a pretty nifty feature, and I enjoy using it. The other options here are just standard options. You could essentially have the door unlocked at all times, so that's what this toggle is. And then the third option, I'll talk about that one in a little bit, but you could also unlock it on park. So when you hit the park button or shift into park, it will unlock the car. So that's pretty standard stuff. The other option here is the hands-free trunk. Now this is a feature that I love and both hate. I've actually had problems with this feature. So essentially I have a single car garage. I live in an apartment complex. So with these types of garages, they only have so much space. So they're not the most spacious, but they are a single car garage and you can fit a single car in those. However, this car is pretty long. And like I said in my previous video, or maybe it was a video before that, but essentially I was alluding to the fact that this car feels like a 7 Series in the way that it's sized and packaged together. This car is longer than I thought it would be. So it's a little tight in here, especially if you have stuff against your back wall. So say you have like racks or maybe like storage bins or something like that backed up against the back wall of your garage area. That is a problem, because when you try to open the trunk opens up so wide that if you have stuff stacked up, it can bump into that. And from what I've seen, there is not a sensor stopping it from doing that. The other thing is I tend to run into the end of the trunk quite a lot. I think I've done it about 3 times since I've owned this car. And I even got like a bump on my head like a couple weeks ago, just because I hit my head so hard on the end of it trying to get stuff out of my trunk. And I'm not really that tall. I'll say I'm about 5'8.5", 5'9" on a good day, and I've hit myself in the head on this trunk at least about 3 times now. I think the problem is the angle in which the back trunk goes up is a little too steep. I honestly think this car should be a hatchback, if I'm really being honest. I think it would solve a lot of those problems. But it's just the way this trunk is hinged, it's just different. So I try to be really careful opening it and closing this trunk. And for that reason, I've turned off the hands-free trunk, because it actually mistakenly opens up when I'm trying to get out of my garage. And although it beeps, I think it beeps about 3 or 4 times before it opens, it still always thinks I'm behind the trunk when I'm trying to open up my garage door, which is like right behind where I'm parked. So it was pretty annoying, and I didn't want the trunk to just hit something in the back of my garage, so I've left this feature off. And the last options here are just aligned to notifications, pretty standard stuff. I'm not going to go too in depth in that. But this very last option here, the connected garage option, this is not an option that I can't do, but my understanding is you can link this car to a compatible garage door opener, and you can use your screen to open the garage as opposed to using one of these one of these little things. I really don't like these. I think having a feature like this in a car is pretty cool, and it alleviates the need for something like this. So the next tab is the light tab. This provides essentially more in-depth settings with everything related to lights in this car. You can modify your headlights as you could on the controls section, just a little bit more expanded. And then you could also turn on or off auto cancel for your turn signals. Turn signals are a big controversy in this car. Maybe I could talk a little bit more in depth in another video, but just for the sake of time, I'll say I've turned this off just because the turn signal auto cancel is annoying and I'd rather have full control over the way I'm driving. You can turn on or off the auto high beams, and you can also turn on the headlights after you get out of the car. So this is all default stuff. I've just kept this the same. The next little section here is for accent lights. I have them set to auto, so they'll come on when the sun is down or light is dim enough outside the car. They'll turn on automatically. And then here you could also change the color of the accent lights. I've have them set to white just because that looks the cleanest, but I'll admit if I'm in sport, I'll probably turn it to red or some of these other colors. The other option here are around the dome lights. I just have this set to auto, and then the footwell lights. Now on to display. So this section is for anything related to your display itself. Right now I have it set to auto in terms of appearance. There's a dark and light mode. I have it also set to reduce some blue light, so that's always good because my eyes are not the best. So having that is pretty cool. You could also modify the brightness of your screen. I have it set to auto. You could also toggle automatic blind spot cameras. I have this turned off just because the blind spot camera is distracting. When you turn on your signal, there's actually a screen that comes up here with just a camera feed. And when I'm just like in traffic or I'm just trying to get to where I'm going relatively quickly, it's always distracting just having that there because my eyes always gravitate towards it when I could just really like look outside the window. because like I said in another video, this car is like a fishbowl and about 50% of it is glass. So I think it would be easier if I just look to my left or my right, just because there's so much glass, there is so much space to look, and I can have easy view of my blind spot. Not only that, but I also have blind spot indicators in this car. So I think this is redundant. The other option here is the clean screen mode. So I'm gonna hit that, and this is what it looks like. Essentially, this mode allows you to clean the screen. I have a microfiber towel here, right here, and I use this to clean the screen from time to time. But you could use it to clean the screen, and then after you're finished, you can just hold this for 3 seconds to exit. The other option here is the ability to lock the rear display. So if you have kids in the back seat and you don't want them messing around with anything on that screen, you can lock it. This option here with the scroll wheel function, I love this option just because it gives me quick access to controls that I would otherwise fumble around trying to find through this screen. Right now I have it on ask each time, but you could set it to any option you want. So if there's a quick option that you use all the time and you want that option, you have access to it here. And in order to access this scroll wheel function, you just long press on your left scroll wheel for the quick access menu. In my case, it'll pull up a menu, but if you choose one of these, it'll just pull up whatever you're wanting to toggle. Next are your language options. These are pretty self-explanatory. You can skip over those. Text size, time, energy, all this stuff is pretty standard. So let's move on to the next tab, trips. So for the trips tab, I don't really mess around too much in this tab, but I watched another YouTuber's video and they said to create an all-time preset. So this will help you keep track of how many miles you've put on the car, or at least give you quicker access to view that information. So you have that card here, and you can view that at any time. The other option is having it over here. Let's see. Yeah, right here. So you have the option to look at it here as well. And my guess is if you check all of these other ones, so if I have trip A or something, it'll come up here as well. But for now, I just have the all-time and current drive, and also since last charge trip card viewed here. So that's another quick way to access that. Next is navigation. So for navigation, I have the navigation volume turned off just because it's annoying. I think it would only be applicable if you're doing self-driving and you just want to really know what turns you're taking so you know where you're going. And maybe you might be like on a conference call, maybe you might be drafting up an email or something. Who knows what you could be doing with self-driving, but you have that option to modify the navigation volume. The other options are pretty self-explanatory. If you use Google Maps, a lot of these options will look familiar, so I'm not going to spend too much time here. The next tab is the safety tab. So this is where your Sentry mode is. You can turn it on and off here, and you'll have access to the camera-based detection through the Sentry mode system. You can disable the Sentry mode sounds, and you can also view your Sentry mode cameras from your phone. You also have access to your dash cam settings. So right now I just have it set to auto, which I think is on auto by default when you first get the car, because I never really changed these settings. And then you have the option to press on honk. So essentially what that means is when you honk your horn, it automatically starts capturing footage from your dash cam. You can also delete dash cam clips and also format your USB drive from here. The only thing with the delete dash cam clips button is it doesn't actually show you which clips you're deleting. Like if I go into here, it's just, do you want to delete all your clips, and you just press delete. So I would love to see an option to select clips to delete. I'm sure it's somewhere in this menu, but I just haven't found it. The other couple options here are around the blind spot system. So I have automatic blind spot camera off just because, again, it's just distracting. Essentially what that is when you do your left or turn signal, a video feed will come up here or somewhere on the screen, so it shows your blind spot. I do have blind spot collision warning turned on just because I think that's pretty important. And I also have the blind spot warning light, which is the secondary method that this car has when it comes to blind spot collision. So there's essentially a red dot that appears in the speaker, and it's hard to miss, but when you look at it a couple of times, you know where to look for it. So you get used to it pretty quickly. This option I have toggled on for allow mobile access. Essentially, this just gives you the ability to control the car from your mobile device. The next option is around security. So if you are in a valet situation and you don't want someone to drive, or maybe you have your phone in your car and you decide to leave it, you can use a pin to put the car in drive. The other option is the same for the glove box. So if you are in a valet, you don't want them going through your glove box, then you have the option to set a pin to open the glove box. The other option here is around speed limit mode. Pretty self-explanatory. If you have like a minor or someone that's learning how to drive the car and you don't want them going over a certain speed limit, then you have the option to set that here. This option around the cabin overheat protection, I typically have this off, but essentially what this does is it keeps your car cool while you're outside the car. So for example, if you're going to a grocery store and it's really hot outside, you don't want the car to be blazing hot when you come in, then you have the option to turn this cabin overheat protection on. I have it off just because it drains a lot of battery just sitting idly with the fans on, so that's why I have it off. So the next one is automatic 911 call. Pretty self-explanatory. If the airbag's deployed, then the car will automatically use your phone if it's Bluetooth connected to call 911. So you've got your safety alarm, park assist chimes, and Joe mode, which I turned on as soon as I took delivery of this car. Essentially what it does is it reduces the volume of all of your car's chimes. The other option here is the power off. I've never touched this option before. I'm not exactly sure what it does, but if I had to take a guess, I think it powers off this screen, which I'm not sure why you would want to do that, just because the screen controls everything in this car. So I've left it alone. The next tab here is your service tab. I'm not really in this tab too much, but it has some information here. You can view your owner's manual from here. Some other notable things is you could put it into car wash mode from this screen, which essentially, if you're taking this car through a car wash, that's what you would want to use when you're putting it into car wash mode. The other option that's worth pointing out here is your wiper service mode. Based on what I know, when you hit this button, it essentially loosens up the wipers for the front windshield. So that way you can get in the nooks and crannies when you're cleaning the windshield with a wax or something. The next tab is the software tab, and this is another place where you can view your total mileage. You can see my mileage, and the all-time mileage is just a little bit off, but it's pretty close. You could also view your subscriptions from here as well. So you can see my self-driving is going to be up in the 26. So is premium connectivity. So software update preference, I have this set to advanced just because I want the latest updates when they arrive. My understanding is that's what advanced does. I'm not sure why they call it advanced. I think it should be called something else. But that's the option I have. You have the option of also just doing standard. So whenever the first stable update comes out, you get a standard update. I guess when you get the first stable update for any software release, then standard would be applicable for that. That's just my guess. The last two options here are data sharing and cabin camera. So data sharing I talked about in my last video, but this is essentially all of your analytics and telemetry that Tesla gathers as part of their ongoing effort to improve the car. So I've turned all of these options off. The other option is the cabin camera. There really isn't anything to do here. I'm not sure why this is even in here. Maybe it's just for information, but it just gives you some hot links to the privacy page that Tesla has come up with. And then you can learn a little bit more about the cameras as well as the full self-driving. Next tab is the Wi-Fi tab. Pretty self-explanatory. You can connect to a Wi-Fi network from here. Same with the Bluetooth. Bluetooth, you can just connect any Bluetooth device to it. I've never had any issues connecting Bluetooth with my phone. It connects every time. So that's what you can do here. The next tab is the upgrades tab. I'm not in here a lot either, but If you want to subscribe to full self-driving or connectivity, then you can do that through this screen in the car. So you don't even have to have like a laptop or the app on you or anything, which you can do that through the app too. You can just swipe to subscribe on the services that you want within your car. So let's take a quick look at some of these apps, but before we do that, I'd like to just have like a quick blurb on the AC controls. So these are the AC controls. I have it set to low, but you can modify the fan speed here. You can move this up and down. So based on where you're sitting, you can get the airflow dialed in just the way you want it. And then you could also do this for the rear as well. I have it turned off right now, but you can see it's basically the same layout. You could also change the heated and cooled seats in the rear as well. The other options here are keep, dog, and camp. So keep, have no idea what that does, but I have a theory. I think it effectively locks in the temperature that you have set. So every time you get into the car, it will be that temperature, or rather those settings with that temperature. The other thing here is dog mode. I don't have a dog, but essentially what that does is it keeps the car cool so that way the dog doesn't suffocate. Camp, I don't camp, so I have no idea what that does. Maybe you can look into the manual yourself and figure out what it does, because I've never used it before. So getting to the apps. So here you can control the rear screen through this app, so to speak. It's actually off there. There we go. So you can control what the seats do. You can control the music. You can control the games, anything from this screen. You could also lock it again from this screen. So you could also lock it from here as well. But you can do it from this app as well. The next thing is navigation. I love the navigation in this car. It's Google Maps, but very stripped down. It's a lot less busier than the default Google Maps like on my phone, and it definitely fits the aesthetic of this car. Next app is a camera app. This just is all of your cameras. You can view all your cameras from all sides from this view. The only caveat is for some reason they didn't include the dash cam in this view, which I thought would have been pretty cool, and it would complete this entire app, or this view rather. Next thing is your dash cam, which they've created a dedicated app for that, but get this, you could also view the left, right, and rear. Next up is the energy app. This is where you can find out more information about how you're driving and how much energy you've consumed, as well as what exactly is taking up the most energy. So this tab is pretty interesting. I haven't, I'll be honest, I haven't really looked too much into this app, but I definitely will be doing a separate video on it just because I want to know how efficient this car is driving compared to my gas car. Next app is the phone. Pretty self-explanatory, bare bones. You can go in and call people. This app is the calendar, and I don't have it connected, but essentially what you can do is you can connect the Tesla app to your personal calendar. So if you're using an Apple Calendars app, or maybe like Proton Calendar or something, you can connect it to this car and it will show all of your various meetings and appointments, things like that. Messages, this is another app that isn't synced on my phone. I decided not to use it just because I'm not sure why I would be sending messages on my Tesla when I have my phone right here. So this is just for sending quick texts and things like that. So I think this app is just a little redundant, but it could be used in a pinch if for whatever reason you don't have your phone on you. So Zoom, this app is just a one-for-one Zoom meeting app. So if you're taking a meeting from the car, maybe you want to just take your quick meeting. Honestly, I don't think I'll use this, at least for the video meeting. I'll probably use it for just like regular meetings. I think it'd be pretty helpful. This app is the theater app, and this is my favorite app just because you can watch YouTube on it. So you can browse YouTube, you can browse your subscriptions, you can switch accounts, pretty much everything. It's pretty much, it's bare bones compared to the default YouTube app on your phone, but it does have everything you need. You could also go here and minimize it so you can do multiple things, so you can multitask effectively on here, which I think is really cool. Next up is the arcade app. I'm not really in here too much, but I can see myself waiting in a parking lot for an hour or two playing one of these games. I think they're pretty awesome. Although I do miss the fact you can play on Steam on some Teslas, but from my knowledge, they've taken that away. I'm not sure exactly why, but now they have this arcade app. My sister actually played Cuphead not too long ago in the rear passenger seat because you could actually play games back there as well. So I thought that was pretty cool. She said it ran pretty smooth. So the next app here is the Toy Box. So this app I've tried out a little bit, but essentially this car comes equipped with a speaker in the front instead of an acoustic horn. So that opens up for different things you can do, different creative things you can do with this car. So with the boombox, you could actually play your current media. So if I play something on my phone, I could press this button and it'll come outside the car because there's a speaker out there. You could also use it as a megaphone, so you can talk into the speaker and it will come outside of the car. Not sure why anybody would use that. I don't know. I'm definitely not sure if the speaker on the outside is loud enough for that, but you have that option. Next one here is a light show. I didn't really mess around too much with this, and I'm not exactly sure what it does, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Colorizer. This is cool because you could essentially change the color of this car here. So like I said earlier, if you get it wrapped, or for whatever reason you get this car painted a different color, or you just don't like the color you have, you just want to change it to another color, you can do that through this. So next one is emissions. I don't really mess around too much with this, but essentially it's like a gimmicky, jokey, slapstick sort of thing. You can position this whoopee cushion anywhere in the interior, and yeah, it'll do that. If you didn't hear that. So you can change the sound of it as well. They're like different. God damn. There's like different, I guess, fart frequencies you can try. But when someone sits down in the seat, it will make that noise. And you can do it for the turn signal, and you can do it on demand. So you could arm this and execute it from your left scroll wheel if you can't see that text. So that's funny. Next thing is tracks. Never used this, but my understanding is that you can make audio pieces out of it. So if you're like a DJ or someone who makes music, you might like this, but you can do that in this car. Next one is romance. So this one, I'm not sure if I'm going to be using anytime soon, just because it's still really hot and it's summer. So essentially what this does is it puts a fireplace movie playing here, and it essentially makes the car warm to make it simulate that you're in front of a fireplace, which I think is kind of cool. I'd rather watch YouTube and have my heat on, but this is the option that you have here. Next one's a sketch pad. You can just sketch quick doodles here. This one's the Mars option, so you can transform your map into the surface of Mars, which is pretty gimmicky, but I'm sure it's cool. Next one is the Santa mode. It's nowhere near Christmas, so I'm not really going to go too in-depth into this option, but you can essentially change your car model when you're doing self-driving or just looking at traffic. It'll change your car model from the Model 3 into a Santa and his sleigh. Next one's Rainbow Road. I've used this a couple of times. It's pretty helpful when you're doing self-driving, just because you know exactly where the car is going. And it, I guess you could say in a way, it breaks up the monotony just with the self-driving and the fact that every vehicle is the same color, every road is the same color. So this helps distinguish your car from other cars on the road when you're looking at the self-driving system. So the other couple of apps here, this one's the browser. I've never used the browser before, but you have that option. So this is the manual. This is a place you can use as a reference as you're trying to troubleshoot something. The only thing I would add here is a search bar to where you can just search various things. I think that'd be pretty cool if they can add that. Going to skip over Bluetooth. We already talked over that. Radio, you have the option of choosing a radio station. I'm not sure if I'll have this after my premium connectivity trial is over, but for now I have it, and you can just choose endless radio stations here, well, nearly endless, and you can search for radio stations as well. Again, I wish there was a favorites option here. I think that'd be pretty cool. The last app here is the karaoke app. I do not use this app. I just have it on for some reason, so this is what I have. Essentially, you can just choose a song from what looks to be a pre-curated library, so you can sing along with your passengers if that's what you're into. So before we end this video, I want to go over some really quick things. So for one, you'll see I have easy entry enabled here. So essentially what this does is when you're getting in and out of the car, it just makes it easier, and you could preset your seat position to make it easier to get in and out of the car with this profile. But essentially what it is this profile is actually connected to my main profile, and I have it set to utilize easy entry while I'm getting in and out of the car on my main profile. You'd also create new drivers as well. So you'll see I have easy entry, and then I have a guest profile. And the guest profile is just for people who are just using my car. So it could be going into service. My dad could be driving it, my sister, whatever. I'll just plug it into guest before I leave the car, just so that way they don't mess around with any of my settings. The only thing that's missing here, I think, is a password option for the various drivers. I think something like that would be pretty cool. Some other quick things is you have quick settings here at the top right for your garage door, your notifications, and your Bluetooth, as well as your Wi-Fi. So those are just quick toggles there. You have access to that. So that is the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope this was very informative for people who are looking into purchasing a new Tesla. Maybe you just got your Tesla and you were just as clueless as I was, just going through menus trying to figure out what's what. So I really hope this in-depth guide helped you. I would definitely like to do more videos like this. This was definitely a much longer video than I was anticipating, but I did enjoy filming it, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching it. So if this was helpful, please leave a like, and also subscribe if you're not subscribed. I make Tesla content once or twice every week. I'm not fully committing, but for now I've been on a 2-video streak per week. So definitely subscribe if you want to see a little bit more or learn a little bit more about my 2024 Tesla Model 3 performance. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next video.